The pod had been burning for exactly 7 minutes when I found it. I know because I checked my watch the moment I heard that sound, a screaming whistle that cut through the Oregon night like a knife through silk. 7 minutes from atmospheric entry to impact, according to the calculations I'd do later, lying awake in my cabin, trying to convince myself I'd imagined the whole thing. I hadn't imagined it. My name is David Chen, and I've been a forest ranger for 12 years. I know every sound these woods make, the way Douglas firs creak in the wind, how elk move through underbrush, the specific pitch of a hunting owl's wings. This sound didn't belong. It was wrong in a way that made my teeth ache. The crash site was in Sector 7, a part of the forest so remote that hikers avoid it even in summer. November rain had turned the ground to mud, and my boots squelched with each step as I approached the crater. The pod was small, maybe 8 feet long, shaped like a teardrop made of metal that seemed to shift colors in the beam of my flashlight, silver to blue to violet and back again. Steam rose from the superheated earth around it. The air smelled like ozone and something else, something sweet and sharp that reminded me of my grandmother's jasmine garden, impossibly out of place in this rain-soaked forest. I should have called it in, should have radioed the ranger station, gotten the authorities involved, followed protocol. My hand was already reaching for my radio when I heard it, a cry, not animal, not wind, a baby crying. My training evaporated. I was moving before I could think, circling the pod, looking for an opening. The metal was cool to the touch despite having just fallen from space, another impossibility in a night full of them. My fingers found a seam, and the moment I touched it, the pod bloomed open like a flower. Blue light spilled out, soft and pulsing, and there she was. The baby was wrapped in something that looked like liquid starlight, a membrane that moved and breathed. Her skin had a faint luminescence, barely visible, like moonlight on water. She was tiny, maybe 6 pounds, with a cap of silver-white hair that seemed too fine to be real. But it was her eyes that stopped my heart. They opened as I leaned in, and they were violet. Deep, impossible violet with flecks that sparkled like distant stars. She looked at me. Not the unfocused gaze of a newborn, but a look of recognition, of desperate hope, of please. "Okay," I whispered, though I had no idea what I was agreeing to. "Okay, I've got you." The membrane released her the moment my hands made contact, dissolving into nothing. She was warm, so warm, and she stopped crying the instant I picked her up. She just stared at me with those ancient, infant eyes, and I felt something in my chest crack open. A loneliness I'd been carrying for years, ever since my parents died, ever since I'd chosen this isolated life. I wrapped her in my jacket and ran. My cabin was 3 miles away. She didn't cry once during that run, just watched my face with an intensity that should have been impossible. The rain soaked us both, but she didn't seem cold. If anything, she seemed to generate her own warmth, a gentle heat that radiated through my jacket. Inside, with the door locked and the lights on, reality crashed over me. I had an alien baby, in my cabin, in Oregon. This wasn't a movie or a book, this was my life, and I had no idea what to do. She started crying again, and instinct took over. Food. She needed food. But what did alien babies eat? I tried formula. She turned her head away, her little face scrunching in what looked like disgust. Tried milk. Same reaction. Tried water. She took a few sips but started crying harder, and now there was an edge of pain to it that made my stomach twist. Think, David, think. The pod. There'd been something in the pod, a compartment I'd seen when it opened. I ran back through the rain, my heart pounding, praying it was still there, that someone hadn't already found it. It was there. A small container, seamlessly integrated into the pod's interior. Inside was a crystalline substance that pulsed with the same blue light. No instructions, no labels, nothing helpful. But when I brought it close to the baby, she reached for it with a desperate hunger that told me everything I needed to know. I mixed it with water. She drank it down, and the change was immediate. Her crying stopped, her skin brightened, and she looked at me with what I swear was gratitude. That first week nearly broke me. She didn't sleep, at least not like human babies. Instead, she'd enter these trance states, her skin glowing softly, and I'd watch her, terrified she'd stop breathing even though some part of me knew she didn't breathe quite like humans do. The crystalline substance ran out after 5 days. Panic set in hard. I stayed up all night researching, cross-referencing, going through my decade-old college chemistry notes. The substance had a specific mineral composition, and by pure chance, or fate, or whatever you want to call it, I'd been collecting meteorites since I was a kid. Rocks from space, scattered across my cabin like paperweights and curiosities. I ground them down, mixed the powder with distilled water, added trace minerals I'd pulled from my water filter. It shouldn't have worked, but it did. She thrived. By the end of the first month, she looked like a 2-year-old. I'd wake up each morning to find her bigger, stronger, more aware. It should have terrified me. Instead, I felt wonder. I named her Lyra, after the constellation visible through my cabin window the night I found her. It felt right, a name that connected her to the stars she'd fallen from. Lyra learned to walk in 6 weeks, to talk in 3 months, full sentences, complex thoughts in a voice that sounded like wind chimes and running water. But she didn't just speak English. She'd slip into other languages, flowing, melodic sounds that made the air feel different when she spoke them. "Papa," she called me. The first time I was fixing the cabin's roof, and she toddled out, pointed up at me, and said it clear as day. "Papa." I nearly fell off the ladder. I was 34 years old, never married, no kids. No family left after my parents died in a car crash when I was 25. I'd chosen this isolated life deliberately, nursing wounds I thought would never heal. And then this impossible child fell from the sky and called me Papa. "Yeah," I said, climbing down, kneeling so I was eye level with her. "Yeah, sweetheart, I'm your papa." She smiled, and it was like watching the sun rise. The next years were a blur of stolen normalcy. I homeschooled her, there was no alternative. How could I send her to a regular school? She'd be in kindergarten 1 month and ready for high school the next. Plus, there were the things she could do. She could lift objects that should have been impossible for her size. I'd find her casually moving furniture, rearranging the cabin to suit her preferences. She could see in the dark, her eyes adjusting to show that violet glow. She knew things she shouldn't know, when storms were coming, when animals were injured in the forest, when I was sad even when I tried to hide it. "You miss them," she said one night. She was 7 or looked 7, sitting next to me on the porch. "Your parents." I'd been thinking about them, about how they'd have loved her, how my mother would have spoiled her rotten. "How did you know?" I asked. She tapped her chest, right over her heart. "I feel it, your sadness, it's like a color, dark blue, heavy. It gets stronger when you look at their picture. Does it bother you that I'm sad sometimes?" "No." She leaned against me, small and warm and perfect. "It means you loved them. Love doesn't go away just because someone does. That's important, that's good." She was 7 years old and understanding grief better than most adults. By the time she looked 10, she was teaching me. Math I couldn't comprehend, physics that broke my brain, languages from worlds I'd never heard of. She'd draw star maps from memory, pointing out constellations that weren't visible from Earth. "That's home," she said once, pointing to a cluster of stars I couldn't even see. "Andromeda VII, 3 suns, 1 yellow, 1 blue, 1 red. The city floats in the clouds because the surface is ocean. We have gardens that grow in 0 gravity and music that you can see," and she stopped, her expression crumbling. "I don't know how I know this, I just remember, but not completely, like a dream I can't quite catch." "Tell me about your family," I prompted gently. Her eyes unfocused, and when she spoke, her voice took on a different quality, older, tinged with sorrow. "My mother, the Empress. She had hair like starlight, and she sang songs that made the planets align. She loved me. She saved me. There was fire, screaming, people who wanted to hurt us. She put me in the pod and told me." Tears streamed down her face. "She told me to be brave, to find someone good, to remember I was loved." I held her while she cried, this child who carried memories of another world, another family. Am I betraying her? She whispered. By calling you Papa, by loving you. No, sweetheart. I tilted her chin up, making sure she saw the truth in my eyes. Love isn't betrayal. Your mother sent you to find someone who would care for you. You found me. I think she'd be happy about that. You really think so? I know so. Because if I lost you, if I had to send you away to keep you safe, I'd want you to find someone exactly like me. Someone who'd protect you, teach you, love you. Your mother gave you life twice. Once when she gave birth to you, and again when she saved you. I'm just the lucky guy who got to help you live that life. She hugged me tighter. I love you, Papa. I love you too, Lyra, always. The years accumulated like snow, gentle, inevitable, transforming everything. Lyra's aging slowed once she hit what looked like 12, settling into a more human pattern. She could pass for a teenager now, if you ignored the moments when her eyes glowed or she accidentally crushed a glass with too strong grip. She wanted normal so badly. Wanted to go to school, make friends, be a regular kid. We tried briefly when she was 15, enrolled her in the local high school under a fake birth certificate I'd forged with hands that shook from guilt and desperation. It lasted 2 weeks. She was too smart, too different, too aware. The other kids sensed something off about her, and teenagers can be cruel. She came home one day with eyes that didn't glow with power but with unshed tears. They called me a freak, she said, trying to sound casual and failing utterly. Said I was weird, that I didn't belong. You're not. I know I'm not a freak, Papa. I know what I am. I'm alien, literally alien. They're right, I don't belong here. She looked at me and my heart broke. I don't belong anywhere. Not on Earth, not with my own people who I can't even remember properly. I'm just stuck between worlds. That night I held her while she cried and I made a decision. Screw normal, screw fitting in. We'd build our own world, just the two of us. I expanded her education at home, brought in special materials, used my savings to buy advanced equipment. She devoured everything: astrophysics, quantum mechanics, xenobiology, ironic, studying alien life when she was alien life, philosophy, literature, art. She was extraordinary. Not because she was alien, but because she was herself, curious, compassionate, brilliant, kind. And every night we'd sit on the porch and look at the stars, and I'd see her gaze drift to that one cluster, that impossible distance, and I'd see the longing. The calling is getting stronger, she told me when she turned 18 or looked 18. It's like a rope around my heart pulling. They're looking for me, Papa, the royal fleet. I can feel them getting closer. How long? I asked, though I didn't want to know. 2 years, maybe less. She took my hand. I don't want to go, but I don't think I'll have a choice. She was right. It happened on a cold December night, 20 years almost to the day after I'd found her. I was out on patrol, checking the winter trails, when the sky lit up like someone had flipped a switch on the sun. I knew immediately. Somehow, I just knew. I broke every speed limit getting back to the cabin, my old truck screaming through the forest roads, my heart in my throat. Please, not yet. Please give me more time. The ship was impossible to describe with human words. It was beautiful and terrifying, massive yet somehow delicate, hovering above the clearing where her pod had landed 2 decades ago. Light spilled from it in colors I didn't have names for, and figures in silver armor surrounded my cabin. And there, at the center of it all, was Lyra. But not my Lyra. This was someone else wearing her face. She wore robes that seemed woven from light itself, shifting and flowing like water made of stars. A crown floated above her head, not resting on it, but hovering, a circle of light that pulsed in time with her heartbeat. Her skin glowed with power I'd never seen her display, even in her most emotional moments. She looked like a queen. No, she looked like an empress. She looked untouchable. Our eyes met across the clearing, and for a heartbeat, I saw my little girl. The one who'd cried when she accidentally stepped on a flower. The one who'd made me breakfast in bed every Father's Day, even though it wasn't a holiday on her world. The one who'd held my hand during thunderstorms even though she was the one with incredible power. "Papa," she said, and her voice carried across the distance, thick with emotion, breaking through that Empress facade. One of the armored figures, tall, imposing, with skin that shimmered like oil on water, stepped forward. His voice was deep, resonant, carrying the weight of authority. "Your Imperial Majesty, we must depart immediately. The coronation has been delayed long enough. You have completed your studies of this primitive world. It is time to—" "Primitive?" Lyra's voice cracked like a whip and the air itself seemed to recoil. "This world raised me, fed me, taught me what love looks like. You call that primitive? Your Majesty, the human cannot." "Cannot what, Commander Zek?" Power radiated from her now, visible waves of energy that made the silver-armored guards step back. "Speak carefully. I am Empress now, last surviving member of the Asterin bloodline, sole ruler of 7 star systems and 43 worlds, and you're giving me orders." The Commander Zek bowed stiffly. "Forgiveness, Empress. I merely meant that protocol dictates." "Protocol?" Lyra laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Protocol said I should die in that coup 20 years ago. Protocol said a baby couldn't survive alone on an alien world. Protocol said human and Andromeda VII biology were incompatible. How's Protocol working out so far?" She walked toward me, and with each step the Empress faded and my daughter emerged. She took my hands in hers, warm, familiar, slightly trembling. "Papa," she whispered just for me. "They want me to leave you, to go back, be crowned, rule an empire I barely remember. They say you can't come because you're human, because you don't understand our ways, because—" her voice broke. "Because you're not family." I looked at the ship, the guards, this impossible situation. "Lyra, sweetheart, you are family. You're their Empress. You have responsibilities that I learned from you." She squeezed my hands. "Everything they taught me through genetic memory, duty, honor, strategy, combat, those are just skills, but you taught me what matters. You taught me that power without compassion is tyranny. That strength means protecting the weak. That family isn't about blood or species, it's about choice." She turned to address the assembled guards, her voice carrying with absolute authority. 20 years ago, my mother, Empress Valeria Asterin, sent me away to save my life. She programmed my pod to find the safest, most compatible location in the nearest habitable galaxy. It found Earth. It found this forest. It found him. She pointed at me. "David Chen saved me, fed me with ground-up meteorites when my supplies ran out, taught me to walk, to speak, to think. He gave me a home when I had nothing. He gave me love when I'd lost everything." One of the guards, a female with crystalline skin, spoke up, her tone less hostile than Zek's. "Your Majesty, we acknowledge the humans' service. But surely you understand that he cannot come to Andromeda VII. He lacks the proper. He lacks nothing." Lyra pulled out a device from her robes, and holographic displays materialized in the air around us. DNA helixes, complex beyond anything I could understand, but I recognized the structure. One strand was mine, one was hers, intertwined, merged, inseparable. "Do you see this?" Lyra demanded. "Do you understand what you're looking at?" The crystalline skin guard gasped, actually gasped. "That's impossible." "Explain it to them, Dr. Alara," Lyra commanded. The guard stepped forward and I realized she wasn't just any guard. She was a doctor, a scientist. Her voice shook slightly as she spoke. "What the Empress is showing us, it's a complete genetic bond. Our species bonds with our primary caregivers at a cellular level. It's an evolutionary trait that ensures survival. The infant's DNA adapts to match whoever provides care, creating an unbreakable biological connection." She paused, staring at the hologram. "But this level of integration, I've never seen anything like it. The human's DNA isn't just connected to Her Majesty's, it's become part of the royal line itself." Silence, absolute stunned silence. Lyra's voice was soft now, but it carried more weight than any shout. "My mother saved me by sending me away. David saved me by taking me in. And in doing so, by ancient Andromeda VII law, he became my father, not by choice or adoption or sentiment, by biology. By the same genetic markers that prove I am Empress, he is proven to be royal father. Blood bonded, legally, genetically, irrevocably family. She turned back to me, and her eyes were wet. You asked me once if loving you was betraying my mother. I know the answer now. She sent me to find family. I found you. You're not replacing her, Papa. You're continuing what she started. You're the bridge between who I was and who I need to become. I couldn't speak. My throat was too tight, my eyes burning with tears I'd been holding back for 20 years. So here's what's going to happen, Lyra said, addressing the entire assembly. David Chen is coming with us, not as a guest, not as a consultant, as royal father with all rights and privileges that title commands. He will have a seat on the High Council. He will advise me on matters of state. And anyone who has a problem with that can challenge me for the throne right now. Zek looked like he'd swallowed something bitter. Your Majesty, with utmost respect, the human knows nothing of our culture, our politics, our. Then he'll learn, Lyra snapped. Like I learned about Earth, about pancakes and basketball and why humans cry at movies. I spent 20 years learning to be part human. Now he gets to learn to be part Andromeda VII. Fair trade, wouldn't you say? Dr. Alara bowed deeply. It is unprecedented, Your Majesty. But the genetic evidence is irrefutable. By our oldest laws, he is indeed royal father. I will attest to this before the High Council. One by one, the guards bowed. Even Zek, though he looked like it physically pained him. Lyra turned to me and she was just my daughter again, scared and hopeful and young. Will you come? I know I'm asking you to leave everything, your home, your world, your entire life, but I can't do this without you. I can't rule an empire without the person who taught me what it means to be good. What could I say? This brilliant, impossible girl who'd fallen into my life as a baby had grown into someone who needed me, not as an empress, but as my daughter. I looked at my cabin, my forest, my quiet life, then I looked at her. On one condition, I said, anything. I'm not wearing a crown. She laughed, really laughed, and suddenly she was hugging me, and we were both crying, and none of the assembled alien dignitaries seemed to know what to do with this display of human emotion. Deal, she whispered, though you might have to wear formal robes for state dinners. State dinners I can do. Crown is where I draw the line. She pulled back, wiping her eyes, and just like that, the Empress mask slid back into place. She turned to Zek. Commander, prepare the diplomatic suite for the royal father, and someone get proper human food supplies. I'll not have my father starving on my ship. He likes coffee, real coffee, not synthesized. And Earth food with actual spices. Make it happen. At once, Your Majesty. Zek's tone was professional now, accepting. As we walked toward the ship, Lyra's hand in mine like when she was small, I couldn't help but turn back one last time to look at my cabin. 20 years of my life in that simple structure. 20 years of memories with the most extraordinary person I'd ever known. Don't worry, Lyra said softly, following my gaze. We'll come back. Earth is important to me, to us. I'm thinking of establishing a formal embassy here, actually. Someone needs to represent the Empire in this sector, and who better than the Empress who grew up here? The ship's entrance dilated open. There was no other word for it, the metal simply flowing aside like water. Inside was, I had no frame of reference. Crystal corridors that seemed to breathe, walls that shifted colors based on some pattern I couldn't discern, beings of a dozen different species all stopping to stare and then bow as Lyra passed. My diplomatic suite, the words felt absurd even thinking them, was larger than my entire cabin. The walls were transparent, showing Earth below us in a way that made my knees weak. We were already moving, already in orbit, and I hadn't even felt it. The ship uses quantum displacement, Lyra explained, seeing my expression. We don't move through space, we move space around us. No acceleration, no gravity shifts. It's disorienting at first. At first, I laughed weakly, "Sweetheart, I think I'm going to be disoriented for a while." She sat next to me on a bed that seemed to read my body and adjust itself accordingly. "Papa, are you scared?" I thought about lying, about being brave for her, but we'd always been honest with each other. "Terrified," I admitted. "Not of space or aliens or being royal father or whatever. I'm scared of losing you. The real you. Under all the Empress responsibilities and politics and power." She leaned her head on my shoulder, exactly like she used to during thunderstorms when she was little. "You won't lose me. Because you taught me the most important thing. Who we are isn't about titles or power or what species we are. It's about the choices we make, the people we protect, the love we choose to give every single day." She paused. "I chose you when I was a baby and you were the first face I saw. I choose you now when I'm an empress. That will never change." Through the transparent wall, Earth rotated slowly, beautiful and fragile and so very far away. "Welcome to my world, Papa," Lyra whispered. "Let me show you the stars." The first week in space nearly broke me. Not because of the ship, the Asteria they called it, a living vessel that hummed with its own consciousness. Not because of the aliens, though meeting 17 different sentient species in 7 days was overwhelming enough to make my brain feel like it was melting. It was the politics. "The royal father will sit on my right during the coronation," Lyra announced during our first High Council meeting, and you'd think she'd suggested making me emperor from the way some of them reacted. The council chamber was massive, a circular room with a domed ceiling that showed real-time views of all 43 worlds in the Andromeda VII Empire. 12 beings sat around a table made of something that looked like solidified light, each representing a different sector, species, or power block. Commander Zek was there, still radiating disapproval. Dr. Alara sat to his left, her crystalline features unreadable. The others were a mix of forms I was still learning to distinguish, some humanoid, others decidedly not. "Your Majesty," began a creature that resembled a floating jellyfish made of silver mist. Their voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. "Surely you understand the optics. A human. At a coronation that will be broadcast across the entire empire. Sitting in a position of honor traditionally reserved for—" "My father," Lyra interrupted, her voice cold enough to frost the air. "That position is reserved for my father. Which he is. Genetically proven, legally binding, end of discussion." The jellyfish being pulsed with agitation. "But the bloodline implications are perfectly clear," Dr. Alara interjected smoothly. I was starting to like her. "I've run the genetic analysis 17 times. David Chen's DNA has integrated with the royal Asterin markers. By our oldest laws, older than this council, older than the empire itself, he is royal father. To deny, this would be to deny the very biological imperatives our society was founded upon." "It's unprecedented," grumbled a massive being covered in what looked like living armor. We have no protocol for. Then we make new protocol, Lyra snapped. Or did everyone forget that I'm Empress, that my word is law, that I could dissolve this entire council if I chose to? Silence, heavy, tense silence. I cleared my throat. Everyone's attention swung to me and I fought the urge to run. If I may, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I understand your concerns, I'm human. I know nothing about your cultures, your history, your ways of doing things. I'm going to make mistakes, probably a lot of them. Zek nodded sharply, as if I'd just proven his point. But, I continued, that's exactly why Lyra, Her Majesty, wants me here, because I don't think like you do. I don't have centuries of political conditioning or species loyalty or ancient grudges. When she asks my advice, I'll give her a human perspective, an outsider's view, and sometimes that's valuable. The jellyfish being pulsed again, but slower this time, thoughtful. An interesting point, Royal Father. Though I wonder if you truly understand the weight of the role you've accepted. No, I admitted. I don't. But I didn't understand the weight of fatherhood either when I found a crying alien baby in my forest. I figured that out as I went. I'll figure this out too. Dr. Ilara made a sound that might have been a laugh. I believe I'm going to enjoy working with you, Royal Father. The council session lasted another 3 hours. By the end, I had a pounding headache and a new appreciation for how exhausting politics could be. But I also had something else, a grudging acceptance from most of the council members. I wasn't welcome exactly, but I was acknowledged. That night, Lyra found me in my suite, staring out at the stars. You did well today, she said, joining me at the window. I barely understood half of what was discussed. Neither did I the first few times. She smiled. There's a lot they don't teach through genetic memory. The council has its own language, its own dance. You have to learn the steps. How long did it take you? I'm still learning. She pointed at a distant blue star. That's Andromeda VII. We'll be there in 2 days. The coronation is in 4. Her hand trembled slightly. I'm terrified, Papa. I pulled her close. You're going to be amazing. You're already amazing. What if I fail? What if I'm not ready? What if? What if you're exactly what the Empire needs? I countered. Someone who grew up learning that power should be used to protect, not control. Someone who understands what it's like to be different, to not fit in. Someone who knows that being strong doesn't mean being hard. She leaned against me, and for a moment we were just us again, father and daughter watching stars from a porch that happened to be traveling faster than light. Thank you, she whispered, for coming, for always being what I need even when I don't know what that is. That's what parents do, sweetheart. The next morning I met my staff. 3 beings assigned to help me adjust to court life. First was Kale, a young Andromeda VII native with the characteristic silver-white hair and violet eyes, though his were more muted than Lyra's. He was assigned to teach me etiquette. The bow for council members is 30 degrees, he explained, demonstrating. For high priests, 45. For the Empress, you don't bow, your family. But in formal settings, you place your right hand over your heart and incline your head. I tried it, he winced. Left hand, right hand is for military salutes only. Right left hand, got it. Second was Myra, a small being covered in fine blue fur who chirped when she spoke. She was my cultural liaison. 17 species in the Empire, she explained, showing me holographic displays of each. Each has different customs, taboos, foods they can't eat, gestures that are offensive. For example, never show the palm of your hand to a Valkyrian. It's considered an extreme insult, equivalent to spitting on their ancestors. How am I supposed to remember all this? She chirped, her version of a laugh. You won't, at first, but I'll be with you at all formal functions. If you're about to commit a cultural disaster, I'll signal you. She demonstrated a specific ear twitch. Third was Orin, who looked almost human except for his eyes, which had no whites, just solid gold. He was my security detail and combat instructor. Royal father or not, you're human, he said bluntly. Physically weak compared to most species here. If there's an assassination attempt and there will be, you're a liability. Gee, thanks for the confidence. I'm honest, not encouraging. He tossed me something that looked like a bracelet made of liquid metal. Put that on. It's a personal shield generator. Won't stop everything, but it'll give you a few seconds to run. Run where? Wherever the Empress is. She can protect you. My job is to make sure you survive long enough for that to happen. The days blurred together in a whirlwind of lessons, briefings, and preparation. I learned which fork to use at diplomatic dinners. There were 7. I memorized the names and titles of every major noble house. I practiced the correct way to address a high priest 3 times, apparently, each with different inflections that changed the meaning. But I also learned other things. About the Empire's history, 1,000 years of expansion and integration, species brought together through alliance rather than conquest. About the economy, complex trade networks spanning light years. About the coup that had killed Lyra's family, a rebellion by the military caste who'd wanted more power, crushed eventually but at terrible cost. Your mother, I asked Lyra one evening. Tell me about her. She pulled up a hologram. The woman, no, the Empress, who appeared was breathtaking. Silver-white hair that floated around her like she was underwater, violet eyes that blazed with power and warmth, wearing robes that seemed to be made of woven starlight. Empress Valeria Asterin, Lyra said softly. They said she could sing planets into alignment, that her power was so great, she once stopped a civil war just by appearing on the battlefield and demanding peace. She touched the hologram and it rippled. She was gentle, Papa. The histories talk about her power, but I remember gentle hands, songs in a language I'd forgotten I knew, the smell of something like earth jasmine but sweeter. She'd be proud of you, I said. How do you know? Because she saved you, sent you away at the cost of never seeing you again. That's love, putting your child's survival above everything else. And look at you now. You survived, you thrived. You're about to become Empress. If she's watching from wherever the dead go in your culture, she's proud. Lyra cried then, silent tears that glowed faintly as they fell. I wish you could have met her. Me too. Andromeda VII appeared in the view screen on the 3rd day, and it stole my breath. 3 suns, yellow, blue, and red, orbited each other in a complex dance. The planet itself was mostly ocean, deep purple water that sparkled with bioluminescence. And floating above it, held aloft by technology I couldn't begin to understand, was the capital city. Starfall. That's what they called it. Towers of crystal and light, gardens that defied gravity, bridges made of what looked like solid rainbows. Hundreds of thousands of beings moving through streets and airways, ships coming and going in organized chaos. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Home, Lyra breathed, and I heard longing and fear in equal measure. The Asteria docked at the royal palace, a structure that made the rest of the city look small by comparison. As we descended, crowds gathered, thousands, maybe millions, all wanting to see their new Empress. They're celebrating, Kale explained. The Empire has been without a ruler for 20 years. This is everything returning to balance. Lyra stood at the ship's main window, looking down at her people, and I saw her shoulders straighten. The girl who'd been terrified vanished. In her place stood an Empress. Papa, she said without turning, stay close to me, I need you. Always. The coronation was in 2 days. In between, there were audiences with nobles, meetings with the High Council, blessings from the high priests of the 7 suns. Lyra handled it all with grace I didn't know she possessed, and I stood beside her, trying not to embarrass her. Mostly I succeeded. There was one incident with a Valkyrian dignitary where I almost showed my palm before Myra's urgent ear twitch saved me. And I definitely used the wrong fork at a state dinner. But overall, I managed not to cause an interstellar incident. The night before the coronation, Lyra came to my quarters. She looked exhausted, the weight of what was coming pressing down on her. Can we just be us for a little while? She asked. No Empress, no royal father, just you and me. Of course. We sat on the balcony overlooking Starfall, and I told her stories about her childhood on Earth. About the time she tried to fix gravity and accidentally made all the furniture float. About her first thunderstorm and how she'd insisted on standing in the rain because the water tastes like stars, Papa. She laughed, really laughed, and the sound carried across the night air. I miss it, she said. Earth, the simplicity, the quiet. We'll visit, make it official policy. The Empress returns to Earth once a year. Call it cultural exchange or diplomatic relations or whatever, but we'll go home. Home, she smiled. Yeah, Earth is home too, isn't it? I have two now. That's the advantage of being you. You get to belong to two worlds. The coronation ceremony was held in the Grand Cathedral of Seven Suns, a structure so massive it created its own weather system inside. Millions watched via holographic projection across all 43 worlds. I stood where Lyra had insisted, on her right in the position of honor. The crown, that floating circle of light, descended from above, and as it neared Lyra, it began to pulse in sync with her heartbeat. The high priest spoke in the old language, words that made the air vibrate. Lyra responded, her voice carrying across the vast space without artificial amplification. Power radiated from her, visible waves of energy that made everyone present step back, everyone except me. I felt it wash over me, warm and familiar, and I realized with a start that I recognized it. This was the same energy I'd felt when I'd first held her as a baby, when I'd fed her from my meteorite collection, when I'd raised her as my own. The crown settled onto her head, or rather above it, hovering exactly 1 inch from her silver-white hair. The cathedral erupted in light, in sound, in pure energy. All hail Empress Lyra Asterin, the high priest proclaimed. Ruler of 7 systems, protector of 43 worlds, last of the sacred bloodline, keeper of the ancient ways. The assembled crowd roared approval, millions across the empire celebrating through holographic projection. And Lyra stood there, resplendent in her power, looking every inch an empress. Then she turned to me and she winked. Just a tiny gesture, barely noticeable, but it was her. My daughter, still in there under all the power and ceremony. The celebration lasted 3 days. Diplomatic receptions, formal dinners, traditional dances I didn't understand but tried to appreciate. I met more dignitaries than I could count, shook hands and tentacles and energy fields. But on the 4th day, reality reasserted itself. The empire had been without leadership for 20 years. There were problems, factions, tensions that had built up in the power vacuum. The High Council convened in emergency session. Your Majesty, Zek began, and his tone was grim. We have intelligence of rebel activity. The same faction that led the coup 20 years ago, they're still active, and they're not happy about your coronation. Lyra's expression hardened. Do we know their numbers? Scattered cells across 12 systems. Perhaps 10,000 strong, possibly more. They've been quiet during the Regency, but now. Zek pulled up holographic displays showing ship movements, communications intercepts, supply line disruptions. They're mobilizing. What do they want? I asked. Everyone turned to look at me. I fought the urge to apologize for speaking. Dr. Alara answered. The rebels believe the monarchy is outdated. They want a military stratocracy, rule by the strongest warriors, constant expansion through conquest. Everything the empire rejected a millennium ago. They nearly succeeded 20 years ago, Lyra said quietly. They killed my mother, my sisters, nearly killed me. Only the royal guard's sacrifice and my mother's quick thinking saved me. Her hand clenched, and now they want to finish what they started. We have superior numbers, Zek said. Superior technology, but they're organized and motivated. A direct confrontation would cost thousands of lives. Then we don't give them a direct confrontation, I said. Again, all eyes on me. Explain, royal father, Lyra prompted, and I caught the edge of hope in her voice. You said they want military rule, constant expansion, strength as the only virtue. I stood, pacing, thinking out loud. But what's the Empire built on? What makes it different? Unity, Dr. Alara said slowly. Alliance, different species working together. Exactly. So you don't fight them militarily, you prove them wrong philosophically. Show the Empire, show everyone watching that unity is stronger than division, that cooperation beats conquest. I looked at Lyra. You want to defeat them, be the opposite of everything they stand for. Lyra's eyes brightened. A grand alliance. A demonstration of imperial unity so overwhelming that their ideology looks small and petty by comparison. And more, I continued, the idea forming as I spoke. Offer amnesty. Not to the leaders, they've committed crimes, but to the foot soldiers. Most of them probably joined because they felt powerless, forgotten, like the Empire didn't care about them. Show them that the Empire does care. That there's a place for them if they choose peace. Zek looked skeptical. Forgiveness for rebels. Mercy for people who were desperate enough to believe a lie, I corrected. My daughter's sorry, the Empress. She's proof that different species can be family. That outsiders can become insiders. That power used for protection instead of domination is stronger. Let that be the message. The council debated for hours. Some supported the idea. Others, Lyra's voice went cold. Then we remind them why the Asterin line has ruled for 1,000 years. The proclamation was broadcast across all 43 worlds. Lyra herself delivered it, standing in the grand cathedral, the crown floating above her head, power radiating from every word. She spoke of unity, of hope, of the future she wanted to build, an empire where strength meant protecting the weak, where different species weren't just tolerated but celebrated, where power served rather than dominated. And she spoke of me. My royal father is human, she said to billions of viewers. Genetically bonded to me, yes, but also utterly different from me. He knows nothing of our technology, our history, our ways. And that's why I need him, because he sees what we've become blind to. He asks questions we've stopped asking. He reminds me that power without compassion is just tyranny with better uniforms. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was gentle but firm. To those in rebellion, I understand your fear. You think the old ways are dying, that strength is being abandoned. But you're wrong. Real strength isn't domination. It's protection. It's mercy when you have power to destroy. It's choosing peace when war would be easier. Lay down your arms. Come home. Help me build an empire worthy of the billions who live within it. Or refuse and face the consequences of continued violence. The choice is yours. You have 30 days. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within the first week, 3,000 rebels surrendered. Within 2 weeks, 7,000. Some of the cells fragmented, leadership collapsing as soldiers chose amnesty over continued fighting. But not all of them. The hardcore leadership, maybe 1,000 fighters led by a being named Karzoth, a massive Valkyrian warrior who'd been one of the original coup leaders. They rejected the amnesty. More than that, they declared war. If the child Empress wants peace, Karzoth's message said, let her come and take it from us. We are at the battle station Omega in the Nurith system. Come face true warriors, or prove you're too weak to rule. It was a trap, obviously a trap. Don't go, I told Lyra. Send Zek and the fleet, you don't need to. Yes, I do. Her face was set, determined. They're challenging me directly. If I hide behind my military, every faction in the Empire will think I'm weak. This ends now with me, or it never ends. The council argued, Zek argued, even Dr. Alara, usually calm, practically begged Lyra to reconsider. But she was right, and we all knew it. An empress who didn't defend her throne when directly challenged wouldn't keep that throne for long. I'm coming with you, I said. Absolutely not. I'm coming, I repeated firmly. You said I'm family. Family doesn't let each other walk into danger alone. Besides, I tried for humor, what kind of royal father would I be if I let you have all the fun? She hugged me tight. You're the best father in 2 galaxies, you know that. I know, now let's go deal with some rebels. The Asteria, escorted by the royal fleet, jumped to the Neurith system. Battle Station Omega hung in space like a wound, an ugly, militaristic structure bristling with weapons, surrounded by rebel ships. Karzoth's face appeared on the viewscreen. He was massive, covered in the living armor characteristic of Valkyrians, with eyes that burned with fanatic intensity. "So the child Empress comes," he sneered, "and she brings her pet human. How touching." "Karzoth," Lyra said, her voice steady, "this is your last chance. Surrender now. Face trial for your crimes live. Live as a slave to your weak philosophy." He laughed. "Never. The Empire was built on conquest, on strength. Your mother forgot that. You've never known it. But we will remind the galaxy what true power looks like. Then you've chosen. What happened next, I witnessed from the Asteria's bridge, and I'll remember it until the day I die." Lyra walked to the forward viewport. Her crown blazed with light. Her skin began to glow, brighter and brighter, power building until the very air around her seemed to crack. "All ships," she commanded, "stand down. I will handle this myself." "Your Majesty," Zek started, but she silenced him with a look, and then she stepped out into space. No suit, no ship, just her floating in the void, surrounded by a corona of energy so bright it hurt to look at directly. She raised her hands, and I felt it. The ship felt it, space itself felt it, pure power, channeled and controlled and utterly devastating. The rebel ships opened fire. Thousands of weapons, enough firepower to destroy a planet. The energy beams and projectiles didn't even reach her. They hit her shields and simply stopped existing, annihilated on contact. Lyra spoke, and somehow her voice carried through the vacuum to every ship in the system. "I am Empress Lyra Asterin, last of my line, inheritor of the power that has protected this empire for a millennium, and I am tired of being patient." She brought her hands together, and the light intensified until it was blinding. When she pulled them apart, streams of energy poured forth, not destructive but surgical precise. Each rebel ship found itself wrapped in fields of force, weapons disabled, engines shut down but hulls intact, crew unharmed. In 30 seconds, she had disabled an entire rebel fleet without killing a single person. Battle Station Omega fired its main weapon, a massive particle beam designed to crack moons. Lyra didn't even flinch. She just raised one hand and the beam bent around her, redirected harmlessly into empty space. "Enough," she said, and her voice carried absolute authority. "Your rebellion is over. Your weapons are useless. You have two choices: surrender, or I will continue to demonstrate exactly how outmatched you are." Karzoth's voice came over comms, shaking with rage and fear. "This power, it's not natural." "No," Lyra agreed, "it's royal. Genetic, earned through 1,000 years of service and sacrifice. This is what you were rebelling against, not weakness but strength so great it chooses mercy." Her voice softened slightly. "Stand down, Karzoth. This doesn't have to end with more death. Choose surrender, choose life." There was a long, tense moment. Then slowly the battle station's weapons powered down. One by one, the rebel ships signaled surrender. Lyra floated back to the Asteria, and the moment she crossed the threshold, she collapsed. I caught her, and she was burning up, her skin hot enough that it should have hurt to touch her. "Medical team!" I shouted. "Doctor!" Lyra rushed over, her crystalline hands already glowing with diagnostic energy. Power burn. She channeled more energy than her body was ready for. "She'll survive, but—" Lyra's eyes opened, looking directly at me. Did we win?" "You won," I said, cradling her like I used to when she was small. "You incredible, powerful, merciful idiot, you won." She smiled weakly. "Good, because I don't think I could do that again for at least a week." Then she passed out. The next 3 days were tense. Lyra recovered slowly, her body healing from the massive power expenditure. The rebels were processed, leaders held for trial, foot soldiers offered the amnesty as promised. Karzoth himself faced the High Council, and to everyone's surprise he swore loyalty to Lyra. I was wrong. the massive warrior said, kneeling before her throne. "I called you weak. I called your mercy a flaw. But you defeated us without killing us. That's not weakness, that's—" He struggled for words. "That's true power. I offer my service if you'll have it." Lyra, still pale from her ordeal but sitting upright in her throne, considered him carefully. "You killed people I loved," she said quietly. "You destroyed families. You caused suffering that will echo for generations. I know, I expect execution, I deserve it." "Probably." Lyra stood, walking down from her throne to stand before him. "But my royal father taught me something. He taught me that mercy isn't weakness, that forgiveness isn't foolishness, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is give someone a second chance." She placed her hand on his head, a gesture of benediction. "You will serve the Empire. Not through combat, there are enough warriors. You will serve in reconstruction. You will rebuild what you destroyed. You will help families you shattered. You will spend the rest of your life proving that redemption is real. Can you do that?" Karzoth's voice was thick with emotion. "I can, I will, thank you, Empress." Later, alone in her chambers with just me and Dr. Alara present, Lyra finally let herself fall apart. "I was so scared," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "What if I'd failed? What if I'd killed them all? What if—" "But you didn't," I said, holding her. "You won. You showed mercy. You changed a fanatic's mind through demonstration of true power. Your mother would be so proud. And you," she looked up at me with those violet eyes, "are you proud?" "Beyond words." Dr. Alara cleared her throat. "Speaking of which, there's something you both need to know. When you collapsed, Empress, I ran full medical scans. The power burn affected more than just you. I felt a chill." "What do you mean?" She pulled up holographic displays of DNA, complex structures I couldn't fully understand. "The royal father's DNA, it changed again during the battle. Your bond with the Empress, it's not just genetic anymore. You're linked energetically. When she channels that much power, you feel it too. You're becoming— well, we don't have a term for it. Not human anymore, but not Andromeda VII either. Something new." I looked at Lyra, expecting to see concern. Instead, she was smiling. "Good," she said simply. "Good. Papa, I told you your family. Now it's undeniable at every level. Genetics, energy, soul, we're connected. Forever." She took my hand. "Is that okay?" I thought about my life before her. Lonely, purposeless, just existing rather than living. Then I thought about these last weeks, terrifying, overwhelming, but alive in a way I'd never been. "Yeah," I said, squeezing her hand. "Yeah, it's more than okay." The months that followed transformed the Empire. With the rebellion ended, Lyra turned her attention to building the future she'd promised. She established councils on every world, giving local populations real voices in governance. She opened the borders, welcoming new species into the alliance. She reformed the military, focusing on defense and peacekeeping rather than conquest. And through it all, I stood beside her, learning, advising, occasionally making mistakes, but always learning from them. The council grew to respect me. Even Zek eventually admitted I brought valuable perspective. I became the bridge between Lyra's ideals and practical implementation, the person who asked, "But how will this affect people?" When everyone else was focused on policy, Earth became a formal ally of the Empire. The first human embassy opened in Starfall, and the first Andromeda VII embassy opened in New York. Cultural exchange programs started. Human art and music found audiences across 43 worlds. Alien technology began carefully filtering to Earth under strict guidelines. And every year, just like I'd promised, we went home. Lyra and I would spend a week at the cabin in Oregon, just being father and daughter. We'd sit on the porch, look at the stars, tell stories, remember the impossible journey that had brought us here. On one such visit, 5 years after her coronation, we sat watching the sunset. "Do you ever regret it?" Lyra asked. "Leaving Earth, becoming part of all this?" I thought about it honestly. Sometimes I miss the simplicity, the quiet, but regret, Never. You gave me a purpose I didn't know I needed. I fell into your life and turned everything upside down. Best thing that ever happened to me. She leaned against my shoulder, comfortable in a way she couldn't always be as Empress. I love you, Papa. I love you too, my little star. We sat in companionable silence as the sun set over the Oregon forest. Somewhere above us, the Asteria waited in orbit, ready to take us back to Andromeda VI.